Welcome into the Big Time Throwcast. It is PFF's QB-centric podcast, and we're back to discuss the draft class, landing spots, where all of these quarterbacks landed. If you're listening to us on the PFF Pro podcast, be sure to download and subscribe if you like what you're hearing, because it's a whole separate deal. PFF Quarterback Podcast. Find it on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcasts. We're housing a couple here on the Pro podcast just to give you guys a sample of the type of stuff that you do. I'm PFF_Steve, Steve Palazzolo, here with my partner, Zach Robinson, former NFL quarterback and one of our newest PFF analysts. Zach, let's talk some draft after months of really setting it up and trying to figure out where these guys landed. Big picture, what are your thoughts as far as where the top quarterbacks landed, their fits, and we'll get into detail in them, but what are your big picture thoughts on how the draft unfolded?
Yeah, I thought overall, everybody ended up in a pretty good spot. As it unfolded, obviously the Chicago thing with Trubisky, nobody saw coming. But when you look at the big picture for the, mainly the top four guys, I think they're in really good spots, and it's going to be interesting to see just how much these guys develop, because, for as much talk as everybody was down on this QB class, I mean, everybody's got something there. Obviously there's some really good things that these guys do, and just getting everything right around them and trying to develop them that way is going to be interesting to see. But I think overall, man, it looks like everybody's in a pretty good spot there.
Yeah, that was the way I started positioning it throughout the draft process. It's not necessarily a bad class. It's a talented class, but all these guys came with their own requisite question marks, whether it was Trubisky's, only playing 13 games, or Deshaun Watson's ability to do certain NFL things in the pocket, or Patrick Mahomes being such a gunslingery type quarterback working outside of structure, and Deshaun Kaiser's inconsistency, or you go down the line. Everybody had a question mark or two, but the positives also were pretty strong for all those guys. They all bring something to the table, and we had talked before the draft, and I kept coming back to it's all about fit, it's all about system, it's all about where these guys land. And I'm with you. I like a lot of these landing spots. So let's get into it quarterback by quarterback, starting with Mitchell Trubisky. My first criticism is changing your name from Mitch to Mitchell. I don't know if that's the move to be the franchise quarterback, to be a face of a franchise. Is Mitchell going to work for Trubisky?
I think I'm going to go with Mitch, because I'd heard somewhere along the lines that got blown up, the Mitchell thing. So I'm going to stick with Mitch, because I think that just flows a little better for a franchise QB. I don't know.
That's my feeling. I think we should also go with Mitch, despite what Mitch's mom prefers, which apparently is Mitchell. Yeah. But look, aside from the Bears perhaps negotiating against themselves to move up one pick, despite all of the behind-the-scenes stuff, I think before the draft we said with Trubisky, he fits more systems, and that's why he ended up being our number one quarterback. Was not so much that he's head and shoulders above the rest of this class, but I think it was just because the transition for him appeared like it would be easier for more NFL systems or more teams that were going to be drafting him, the Bears being one of them. So I know we've talked before about Trubisky, the Bears, that connection. How do they fit in? How is that puzzle going to fit? How does Trubisky's skill set match with what they like to do on offense in Chicago?
I think it's a great fit. I mean, it matches up to the eye pretty well. You've got Chicago last year. Obviously, they were plugging and playing guys and getting a ton of production out of everybody that was there. So when you look at that system, it's kind of the Adam Gase, kind of a little more spread type of system. They're obviously under center doing some stuff and play action and move the pocket plays. He fits that stuff great, because Trubisky, obviously there's no under center experience, but in terms of reading out, full field, pure progression reads, he was doing that every game. That's what we saw on tape, and that's why we, like you said, ultimately had him as our number one guy. But a lot of stuff to get excited about with him. I mean, the accuracy, the athleticism, but the biggest separator from him, with everybody else is just his feel and instincts in the pocket. I mean, he feels things really well, very quick-minded, can eliminate, defenders quickly in a read and get to the next. And from the time he sees something pop open, to release time is incredibly quick. So when you look at that Chicago offense, a lot of shotgun, spreads you out a little bit. So it matches up to the eye really well of what he was doing at North Carolina.
Yeah, a couple things that stood out about Trubisky's game throughout the entire evaluation process. I thought his short area accuracy was really, really good, especially that 1 to 5 yard range, which might sound simple, but putting the ball on guys in that 1 to 5 range so that they can catch and run, he had the best throw-for-throw accuracy in the entire class. We went and charted every single pass with ball location in mind. Did he put it on the numbers? Did he put it in the middle of his frame? Did he put it on the back hip? Back hip being considered inaccurate for this particular study. And Trubisky was, the best from a short area standpoint. It was excellent intermediate 21 to 30 yard range. Also thought he hit more cover 2 shots, that in between the corner and the safety, more than I've seen from any college quarterback in recent memory, because you just don't see guys try that. I mean, that was a big part of his game as well.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I think you called that even in the middle of last season, just how many of those hole shots in cover 2 he was hitting. I mean, it was whether it was a corner route, a seam ball, and even late in the progression, ripping those in the seam. So, I'm with you. I think he's got a ton. In terms of overall arm talent, I'm not sure how you feel about, but I think he was probably the 3rd most talented arm behind Mahomes and Kaiser. So but he was just, obviously he's the most accurate and consistent guy. But in terms of different types of throws, I think he was a little bit behind a couple of those guys. Obviously Mahomes is on a different level. We'll get to him in a second. But, the arm talent wise, you'd like to see a little bit more there, but he's got so much other good stuff that obviously he was the top guy to go.
Yeah, the part where he was weak as far as our accuracy stuff went, over the shoulder throws. So some of those touch throws. So that includes the deep ball, the deep shots. We had it in our scouting report. He'll hang some of those up. I mean, he had his fair share of my favorite, the quarters post. We've got a wide open field and you hit a guy in stride. It might be a little bit easier than I make it out to be, but I do love watching those. But I feel like he was probably a tick below some of those other guys. Any general weaknesses, things he needs to work on? Because the 13 games, people use that against him. He's inexperienced. There's not a great track record of guys with inexperience succeeding in the NFL. But I looked at it as that was an impressive sample, impressive 13-game sample. And we actually highlighted Trubisky before the season. And I remember last summer you and I were talking about him, and he was outstanding in limited action in 2015. We had him on our breakout players watch list. Of course, I wasn't necessarily expecting top 2 pick, but the talent was evident last year. But any other general things that he needs to work on, or things that you're keeping an eye on as he progresses?
Yeah, I think you're right with the deep ball. There were some inconsistencies there that we had in the scouting report. Just would hang some up, and then the next one would be a 4-yard overthrow. So you want to see a little bit more there. I think the blitz recognition part, as you got to watch him, over the course of the season, seems like teams wanted to heat him up a little bit more and show some different exotic type blitzes, really, because he was just picking everybody apart. And so some of that will just come with more and more reps and him seeing different looks. I think he can get a little bit more rotational if we're just going to talk kind of mechanics stuff here.
I love it. Yeah, break it down.
Maybe I think he's a pretty stocky guy. Maybe not lift as much and kind of start getting a little more rotational. Get the hips firing through it a little bit more. I think that'll help out with some of the deep ball stuff and some of the throws that end up a little bit lower on the on the frame than you'd like to see as you get down the field. So those are the main things. But really, I love this guy's game. We've liked him, like you said, for a while, and it sounds like it was a consensus in the league that he was the top guy, because there was as much as we hear those rumors, but it sounds like a lot of teams were wanting to trade up for Trubisky. So it was a consensus he was the guy. Ton to like with the guy, incredible feel for the game, and sees it really well. So whenever you have that to go along with accuracy, you definitely got a chance.
Yeah, so I like the fit with Chicago. I know that the Bears are taking a lot of heat for their draft because they only had 5 picks. They moved up gave up a lot to move up one spot, and they still may have been able to just get him at number 3. But if he pans out, I think they'll be okay. I think they'll be okay with their decision. So I like the fit with Chicago. Do you have a feel? The last thing on him, when do you think he starts? When do you think he's taking over? Because they have Mike Glennon. It's not really a long-term deal with Mike Glennon. They can get out of it. It's a team-friendly type of deal. It's essentially set up as a one-year bridge type of deal. Do you expect a heated competition? Do you expect Glennon to definitely start 8 games, to start 2 weeks? Do you have any feel? What would be your prediction as far as how the Bears play this?
Yeah, I would think that Glennon's going to be the guy, and they're not going to force it, and then just see how that season goes. And if Glennon's playing fairly well, and he's they're in games and they're competitive, I think he'll still be the guy. I personally think that at some point next year, whether it's week 10 or somewhere along those lines, I think that we will see him. I think in terms of picking up this offense, I think he'll pick it up pretty quick and be able to compete and be ready to go. I just don't think, with what they did with Glennon, that they're absolutely like, hey, let's just let this guy sit and learn. But at some point during the season, I think they're going to be like, okay, he's got a good enough handle of what we're doing. Maybe Glennon's struggling a little bit. We've only won 3 games. Let's just see what he's got. So I think that definitely is a case I can see, carrying out.
It's always interesting how teams handle this, because a lot of times people say you have to redshirt a guy or you have to let him play. I don't think there's any one specific way to do this, but I do want a team that says, you know what, this guy needs to redshirt, and they actually stick to it. It seems like every year, Blake Bortles was supposed to redshirt. He was in there by game 4. Jared Goff was going to redshirt, and he was in there by week 11 or 12 or whatever it was. So if a team really thinks that a guy needs to sit for the entire season, I'd love to see them stick with it. But I don't know that Trubisky necessarily is that guy, because he doesn't have a ton of game experience, and maybe just throwing him in there at some point is the move. The teams have had success with quarterbacks in different ways. So,
right. You got to look at their, the regime there too. Like, John Fox. I mean, those guys are, they're fighting for their jobs. So if something's going on and they want to, show everybody like, hey, this is what we could be, in a couple years down the road with this guy, definitely could get a little antsy and throw him in there maybe a little early.
The Jeff Fisher move with Jared Goff.
That's right.
That was his save the job type of move. Save his job type of move.
How do you feel about him, as far as weather-wise in Chicago? I think that hasn't really been talked about a ton, but do you feel like that he can handle that weather in Chicago, the windy? Only thing I don't know is how well he spins the ball. That's why I'm bringing it up. Is just I don't know how clean it exactly comes out of the hand. Never seen him throw in person, but right. You see some of the pro day tape, and it that's the only real concern I would have of him playing in Chicago is how really well he spins the ball. But I don't know how you feel about that.
But so that's the most important thing, though, right? It's throwing that tight spiral that can kind of cut the wind and not lose zip. We mentioned the deep ball; he'll float those a little bit. I feel like that is something that could be a concern in Chicago. The worst weather game that we saw, I almost just don't want to hold against him or Deshaun Kaiser for that matter, was week 6. They had the hurricane rolling through North Carolina, and Trubisky played, or just the East Coast in general. But Trubisky played in it. That was by far his worst game. Kaiser played in it, and his situation against NC State was even worse. I mean, he couldn't even pick the ball up. So, the worst weather situation we saw from Trubisky wasn't pretty, but I don't think that's the type of Chicago weather we have to worry about. Yeah, I agree. As far as it looks like the ball comes out of his hand well, but I don't think he has Mahomes type of zip.
Sure.
I don't think he has this absolute cannon. So I think it's a bit of a concern. I don't know that it's not Cody Kessler trying to play in cold weather. So I think it's something that might come up, but it's not something that I think would keep me from drafting Trubisky if I'm the Bears. Yeah,
no, I'm with you. I think all the other stuff is so good that's obviously well down the line of concerns, but definitely something there because that Chicago win and cutting that NFL ball really even when it's not windy and you don't spin the NFL ball, it dies, man. That thing, the college ball, the Nike ball, those, if you don't spin it as well, it still has enough carry through the air. The NFL ball, if that thing gets a wobble to it, it noticeably ends up, low on the guys' frames. You end up kneecapping guys. So that's something to watch for, but like you said, not a huge concern.
Well, let me ask you this: since you're a QB coach, I'm not going to call you a guru just yet.
I thought that was about to come out too. I was about to get on you.
You're not at George Whitfield's level yet, so we will work our way up to what? We'll work our way up to guru. Once you get on SportsCenter and game day, then we'll call you a guru. No, I'm messing with you. But look, what you're looking for, because a lot of people talk about the radar gun, and they put the radar gun on these guys at the combine, and again, I always like to compare to pitching. The radar gun's one thing, but there are pitchers who throw 90 who look like they're throwing 95, and there are guys who throw 95 who look like they're throwing 90. I'd imagine in football it's the same exact thing, so it's not necessarily the number, because the radar gun measures the ball out of your hand, and that's your max velocity. But the pitcher that throws 90 that looks like it's 95 has what we like to call carry. He spins the ball. It's a tighter spin. The ball stays up, it doesn't drop as much, and it looks faster. It's one of those, it's called sneaky fast. The opposite is true for the guy that throws 95, where it looks like 90, just doesn't play as hard. I assume with football, it's about the tightness of the spiral, that ability to, as we say, cut the wind, get the ball through the air, and maintaining velocity. So is that what you're looking for when you're trying to evaluate arm? Is that more important than this radar gun number or the way the ball comes out of a guy's hand, that max velocity?
Yes, that's exactly it. Every QB coach and offense coordinator, they want to see that ball finish up on the face every single time. I know Brady and is kind of a more of a chest shot thrower, because he's got kind of maybe some smaller receivers, and he basically is giving them 10-yard handoffs there. But for the most part, it's you want to see it up on the face, and like you said, it needs that extra little carry. And with Trubisky, you do see some of them end up a little, kind of chest high on a lot of throws, and it does look like it. I wouldn't say it's dying at the end, but it does, finish a little low. Like Patrick Mahomes, when we watch him, we'll get into him in a second, but he's got some late life and carry on that ball that everything's right up on the face. And so I think that's something you'd like to see a little bit more of Trubisky, if he can get there. Maybe mechanically just kind of clean some stuff up with his lower body. I think he can definitely get there to be one of those guys.
Just to wrap it up on Trubisky, is his arm slot a concern at all? It looks a little bit low. Does that matter? Is slot overrated in general? What are your thoughts on Trubisky and where he throws the ball?
I think his slot's fine. I mean, it is a little 3/4 Z, but overall, he might have some batted passes at the line, but really a lot of batted passes at the line is just how you kind of feel the game anyway. And able to throw around arms and things like that. So I don't see that being really an issue with him at all.
And that's why I respect you quarterbacks so much. When I was pitching, the plate never moved, and I still couldn't throw the ball over it. And you guys are throwing around arms with, to different spots with different velocity. That's why QBs, you guys are awesome. Good job. All right, let's move on to Patrick Mahomes. I'm going to read you a couple lines from PFF Draft Pass, which is still available, and I suggest you guys pick up the PFF Draft Pass, profootballfocus.com/DraftPass17. Use the promo code PFFSteve. You'll get $5 off. It's still valid. It's one of those things I like to just refer to pretty much every day, and you'll just keep it handy all summer. You get the PDF, you get the online access, and I think it's really handy in August when you're trying to look back on the draft class and try to remember the guys that got drafted.
It's unbelievable. I mean, I got it pulled up, on my computer every single day. I mean, if you guys haven't checked this out, Steve put a ton of work. I don't know if you guys realize the amount of work Steve put towards this draft. The hours was insane, but this Draft Pass thing is awesome. So yeah, definitely check it out.
Yeah, the whole team, everybody went to town on this thing, and the one final version that we added just organized all the players by team. So if you're a Bears fan and you just want to see that class, it'll have all the Bears profiles there. If you're a Chiefs fan and you want to see Mahomes in that entire class, we have it organized for you nicely. So check it out, profootballfocus.com/draftpass17. Use the promo code PFF-Steve. But I'm going to read what you wrote as part of the Patrick Mahomes profile. We all worked on these together. You did a lot of hard work on the quarterbacks, but the first couple lines: smooth whip release with power and touch. Arm is special and may define the term arm talent. And at the bottom, you essentially said he can do things with his arm that basically few in the NFL can do. So we'll touch on that in a second. Just to go back to the storyline and the drama, the Chiefs move up from 27-10 to go get Patrick Mahomes. I feel like this move was, hey, we're close to winning. We get into the playoffs. We scored 15 points against the Steelers at home, and the Steelers defense then got absolutely torched the next week against New England. And they said, the Chiefs basically said, hey, we have a good defense. We have a potential championship level defense on a week-to-week basis. Alex Smith just isn't the guy. We're finally giving up on Alex Smith. He's the guy that just kind of gets us on the green. He gets us to the playoffs, but it's a long putt. It's a really, really long putt. We need a guy that's going to put us within 4 feet of the cup. He might miss the green a few times, but we need a guy that's going to put us at championship level territory. And there cannot be a bigger difference between Alex Smith and Patrick Mahomes as far as playing style and just how they go about their business. So going back to this arm talent type of thing, what did you see from Mahomes? How did you like the fit with the Kansas City Chiefs, with Andy Reid, with that coaching staff? What does the future hold for the Chiefs? Because this was an aggressive move to go get Mahomes.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, this guy was I thought the order of how they got drafted would be Trubisky, and then I thought Mahomes would be the second guy. This guy's been my favorite guy to watch on film, probably next to Aaron Rodgers ever. I mean, just the stuff that he does, you would sit down and basically just laugh to yourself at some of the things he would do. I mean, we watched so many different deals. We'd send clips over, like, did you see this Mahomes deal here? I mean, he's got just a crazy feel for the game. His arm is like you read off there, just incredibly special. Can make any throw, any platform. That's been said over and over. But the ability to extend the play and just the different angles, I've never really seen anything like it besides kind of Rodgers, Favre, those guys. But overall, I love this guy's game. I think he's got, in terms of all of these guys and being, potentially a, top 5 QB in the NFL and truly carrying a team, no matter what pieces are around him, a guy that can really carry down the road. I think he's the only guy in this class that can do that. So I love this game. I think the fit with Kansas City is awesome, and definitely fired up to see how it shakes out.
So you're really high on Mahomes' talent, and Andy Reid, I think because he came out of the Bill Walsh whole tree, and it's the West Coast system and verbiage and all that stuff. I think people say, okay, that's a West Coast scheme, but Andy Reid, whatever that means these days, I think that's more about terminology than style at this point anyway.
Right.
But Andy Reid has developed guys from a Brett Favre to a Donovan McNabb to an Alex Smith. So he's worked with all different style quarterbacks. I mean, Donovan McNabb might be, the most un-West Coast offense quarterback you can find with his style of play, and he got the most out of him. So will he be able to adjust to Mahomes' game? Because a lot of his game, you mentioned Brett Favre, and a lot of his game is outside of structure, and it's like the whole no. Okay, fine. Okay, that was a good decision. It was a bad decision, but it worked out. So how is Andy Reid going to harness Patrick Mahomes? Does he want to harness Patrick Mahomes? Because so much of what Mahomes does ends up outside of structure, and will that play at the NFL level?
Right. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is you can't take away his stinger too much. Don't try to coach this guy into something he's ultimately not, and force him to play a different style. I mean, he's going to need to harness in the pocket mechanics and remaining a passer. I think one thing you look is there's some positions he'll get in, when he starts to feel pressure or if the route combination's not matching up, where his shoulders end up, square to the line of scrimmage, is kind of a first instinct to do, instead of truly remaining a passer with, his left shoulder, facing downfield, ready to throw. So that's a tough habit to break. The best thing that he's got is he's going to get so many reps next year as the, quote unquote scout team, when they're given the look of whoever they're playing that week. The first defensive line versus the 2s and 3s offensive line. Obviously the one secondary versus young receivers, and he's really going to find out what he can and can't do with those reps. It's just like Aaron Rodgers when he was behind Favre. He got to learn so much of his game through those reps of being the scout team QB, because those reps are hard. I mean, I've done it. It is not pretty. The pockets aren't clean. It's set up for the defense to have success.
Yeah, because you're basically working with the backups against the number one defense, and your job is, just duplicate what the offense is going to do against us this week, right?
Right. Yeah. Just give us a look. Don't do it too well, so our guys still have confidence. Because that's nice. Basically what it's all about on defense. They gotta pump those guys up. But that's going to be the best thing for him, and that's where Andy Reid's going to really see and coach him up in that areas, and what he can do, and how they'll kind of ultimately formulate the offense around him. But those reps are going to be so valuable, and just him watching Alex Smith kind of operate the pocket, and just watching tons and tons of tape, and kind of replicating some of that stuff. But I think he's so incredibly athletic and instinctive and all those things. I think that over time that stuff will get cleaned up, and he'll ultimately be able to be work from the pocket more efficiently, and then also still have his extendability.
I love your perspective on this whole thing, because the story in camp is going to be, okay, how many reps is Mahomes going to get versus Alex Smith? How many reps is Trubisky going to get versus Mike Glennon? But I like that you look through the lens of those scout team reps count. Those count. You might not be running your team's offense necessarily, but I like your point about he gets to figure out what he can get away with. Even if he's duplicating the Chargers offense or the Broncos offense, he's going up against a number one defense, or the number one defense, and saying, I wonder if I could put the ball into this tight window. I wonder if I could take this chance. And maybe those reps are just as valuable as your offensive reps, as your team reps, which always seem to be the storyline. How are you going to split it up? How are you going to prepare Mahomes versus Alex Smith? I like your perspective on scout team reps. My question about Mahomes going up against Big 12 defenses. First, the windows are massive. The defenses are terrible.
Yeah.
They rush 3 quite a bit, and even when he faced a 3-man rush, he was quick to vacate the pocket. 13.7% of his dropbacks ended up as scrambles. So a pass where he went outside of the pocket to make the throw. 13.7%. That was second highest in the entire draft class. Is that something that he can improve? Because like I said, you mentioned too, you don't want to take away these natural playmaking instincts, but you have to teach him to play from the pocket and within the flow of the offense. He still has to make X number of plays within structure. How the heck do you do that? How do you make that adjustment? How do you make that change in Mahomes' game?
Right. I think you just limit the options of who he can throw to, and meaning, make more timing and rhythm throws outside the number, where it's basically 1 to 2 check down, like that's it, and nothing more. And because Texas Tech, as you know, it's just everybody's out on the route and everybody's running all over the place, and so he's got just tons of different options throughout each course of the play. So I think if you can just kind of limit his options on some of those plays and get some more timing, rhythm stuff where the ball has to come out of his hand, force it to come out of his hand early. So I think you can do that. I think that's why Andy Reid will be so good for him, is because he understands that, like, hey, let's get it out of his hand. Let's use some of his strengths throwing outside the numbers to his advantage. So I think that's something to expect and kind of look for going forward with him.
That's why I'm really fascinated by this match, and I would not be surprised if Mahomes is the best quarterback of this group a few years from now because of this landing spot, because of Andy Reid and the coaching staff, their ability to develop quarterbacks. The other part about Mahomes' game, he only had 10 interceptions last year, which is great. Almost 600 attempts. On paper, it's great, but second highest number of turnover-worthy throws last year. So we had a little bit of interception luck. Also the second most big-time throws in the nation. So I think that kind of sums up Mahomes' game, that boom or bust type of mentality. He's going to make special throws that we've talked about. He's going to make some bad decisions as well. But I did listen to an interview with him or something that he had said where he said, hey, it's the Big 12. Our defense wasn't very good. I had to take some of those chances. And, you know,
Right.
you guys coach up your QB prospects pretty well during the offseason, and maybe that's just a canned answer from Patrick, but I think it's a good answer. You know,
Yeah.
we focus on interceptions. I focus on interceptions. I focus on these bad decisions and putting the ball in harm's way, but there is something too. You have to play to the score. You know, if you have the lead, you're not going to be taking as many shots and all of that fun stuff. So I think there's something to it. And if that's what's going to, you know, kind of rein him in a little bit too, that's a great mentality and something that, you know, if we could see him really make that improvement, you know, I think that's all the better if that's what he truly understands about why he may have thrown the ball in harm's way a little bit more than most.
No doubt. Yeah, I totally agree with him. I mean, he had a ton of pressure just not only game to game to produce and get yards and points, but series to series. I mean, I'm sure it felt like they had to score every time they took the field, every series, just because they knew that they were probably going to get scored on the next series coming back defensively. So the amount of kind of pressure and the ball in his hands all the time, looking to make plays, that wasn't just, you know, maybe at the end of a game. That's throughout the course of the entire game that he was feeling those things. So, like you said, I mean, I think that'll just bode really well. Kansas City's going to have a great defense for years and years to come. So hopefully that'll kind of help with some of those things as well.
So there was a lost Patrick Mahomes interview that was a big joke here on the Pro Podcast. And I interviewed Patrick Mahomes, had some serious technical issues. So this interview that did occur is lost. It's gone forever. But I did get to talk to Patrick. And good kid. Had a great discussion with him. You know, rooting for him because, you know, he like I said, seems like a great kid. One of the things we had to ask him, though, and you kept sending me messages, these no-look passes that he kept coming up with. You kept saying, man, I think he threw a no-look pass. And I asked him about it in this lost interview, and he said, yeah, I pull it out every now and again. He can't do it all the time. He said, I'll probably do it more once I get more comfortable in the NFL. But this is that playmaking feel that he has where he's just doing special things. And it's not this, like, flashy thing, but it's really, like, moving defenders with his head and knowing that he's going to throw back across his body, this calculated type of risk. And, again, I loved his answer on it. He's not just doing it just for fun. I mean, he's doing it to kind of, you know, create separation, get guys open. What do you think of his no-look passes that kept showing up on film last year?
Yeah, there's the one against Oklahoma State sticks out. I was at the game personally. I was in the stands watching and couldn't really tell, you know, when it actually happened. But then when you saw it on the tape and on the TV, you could see him actually move this defender about 3 yards just to get enough space to make this throw. It was like a 3rd and 12. In the fourth quarter of the game. It was a tight game. He moves this guy and makes a no-look throw for a 3rd and 12 conversion. They get a first down, and so it's legit. I mean, he's got just the ability that he can see everything when he escapes the pocket, and the eyes are up, and just his overall vision of the game gives him a chance to do some really special things like that. So. It's interesting that you asked him that question because it did show up that game, and I think there was maybe 2 more where you could noticeably see it. And I'm sure he's probably got some in his back pocket that we don't know about that were throughout the course of the season as well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to some behind the back passes. I mean, he's going to change the game. He's going to change the game. The one last thing that I find most fascinating about Mahomes and encouraging about Mahomes. He was playing baseball up until last year. So his last full football season was the first year that he'd quit baseball, focused completely on football. He took a huge step in his PFF grading, went from 80.7 overall to 90.2, 90.2 being one of the best in the nation. So the fact that he's now harnessing this talent, putting this talent all toward football and not splitting his time between baseball and football, I think that also bodes well for his future and what he's capable of doing. So what a great fit. Patrick Mahomes to Andy Reid. Again, we use the word potential and upside quite a bit, but I think when you look at Mahomes' game and what he's capable of with his arm and the places where he needs to grow, there truly is a lot still to unlock in his game. So Mahomes to Reid with Reid is going to be one of the most fascinating matchups. But like I said, I like where all these guys landed, including Deshaun Watson going to Houston. They traded up to number 12 to go get Deshaun Watson. So it's Bill O'Brien and Watson. And this is an interesting fit because Houston seems to be a quarterback away from contending in the playoffs. But I don't know that Watson's the guy that's just going to step in and do it. Long term, he still might figure it out. Watson was such a difficult evaluation because he does a lot of things well. He makes a lot of throws. He kept making a lot of big throws at Clemson. Our questions about him are some serious ones. Can he work through his progressions? Can he get from 1 to 2 to 3? Read the field? Can he, hang in the pocket a little bit more? He seems to vacate it. Doesn't have great feel in the pocket. The thing I keep bringing up, though, is he coached that way? Is he coached because he's so athletic to just go 1 to 2 and take off? So this, is Clemson saying get from Reid 1 to 2 and then use your athleticism? Or is Clemson structuring the offense because they don't think he can read the field out properly? And Going back to PFF Draft Pass a little bit, I believe you said something about him owning the pre-snap process. And that he's really good pre-snap, but a lot of times post-snap, when he doesn't get what he thought he was going to get, things don't always go well. So let's dive into that. Deshaun Watson to 12. What are your thoughts on the fit to Bill O'Brien? And let's discuss some of those strengths and weaknesses we've discussed with Watson in the past.
Yeah, I think, in terms of where he got drafted, I think 12 was maybe a little high, but you see why. I mean, everybody loves all the big game moment stuff, and he's a winner and all those things. And he's got a ton of great skills to go with it, too. So, in terms of the fit, that offense is so it's very complex, in terms of what they put on the quarterback before the snap with protection and everything. A lot's just matchups, leverages, and that's really what his game is so much pre-snap, identifying the right matchup and the right leverage, where to work, because there is a fair amount of kind of predetermined reads to his game. And so that part matches up really well in terms of what Houston does. But then you look at what they ultimately like to do, and it's a very pure progression offense, meaning, we're going to start this progression no matter what the coverage is. You're starting on the left side, and this thing's read all the way out. You got the receivers coming from left to right, and so you're basically scanning from 1 to 2 to 3, getting all the way across the field with the receivers coming in your vision that way. And you just don't see that on tape. And, Clemson was very, very vanilla in terms of their pass schemes, try to get, formation indicators on where guys are so they can basically just break the field down in half for them and read just one defender after the snap. So that is definitely a question to see if he can truly do it, just because it doesn't show up much on tape. But if there's one guy that can kind of break that mold and do it, it's this guy. I mean, you hear about the off the charts intangibles, all those things. So he's going to work at it, get a ton of reps, and we'll see ultimately if it's something he can overcome.
How difficult is that? Because again, this is the hardest part about the evaluation. I think arm talent-wise, I've seen him zip the ball up the seam, make some good throws there. I've seen him throw a touch. He bounces back from mistakes, always bounces back from his negatives. I love that about him. This is why his evaluation was so difficult, because right when I'm ready to write him off, he'll make some big throws, he'll make the plays he needs to make. But big picture, if he can't learn, a true read, a true progression system, then he's in trouble. So how difficult is that? Because again, we're not saying he can't do it. It just didn't show up on tape either because Clemson limited their offense because he couldn't do it. Clemson limited their offense because they said, we want you running because you're a good athlete. I don't know exactly why they did it, but it didn't show up on tape. So how difficult is this transition? Is it a 1 to 2 year thing? Is it something that you just never learn at the next level? Because there is some risk there.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I guess I can speak a little bit personally because I was kind of the same way in terms of a little bit of predetermined, pre-snap, get the ball out, wasn't reading stuff out that cleanly. And I think a lot of it goes back to just how you played the game growing up. And I went back and watched a little bit of Watson's high school stuff that they have on Huddle there. But he, that's kind of been his game. He's always been the best athlete on the field. And so from a very early age, he's been a guy that if something wasn't there initially, coach is probably like, hey, take off and go. Use your legs. You're the best athlete out on the field. Find a hole to run through and gain some positive yards. And he would do that over and over. So some of the things that look difficult to him, and I know it sounds simple to maybe people listening, but getting to a check down, some of those things look difficult for him because that natural instinct to want to try to find a hole after what he initially sees isn't there, find a hole to run through. He's going to have to just learn those different things. It's just going to come with a ton of reps. They're going to give him a lot of time. But I think he can break that mold a little bit. It's very, very difficult habit to break. I wasn't able to do it. I didn't get a ton of reps. Obviously, he's a gazillion times more talented than I ever was, but
at least you admit
it is a tough deal to break, and it's going to be interesting to see, man. Just how long it could take, and if it ultimately gets to that.
My biggest concern, I think, with Watson too, I expected domination in 2016. When you're paired with Mike Williams, Deion Kane, two outstanding outside receivers, Hunter Renfrow working out of the slot, Artavis Scott in the slot, Wayne Gallman at running back, Jordan Leggett at tight end, they should have put up silly numbers week to week. It should have been straight domination. But for most of the year, it was, what's wrong with Deshaun Watson? He's missing too many throws. I thought the interception totals were probably a little bit higher than they should have been, but the interceptions were bad. I mean, they were straight up.
Yeah.
He was baited into some throws because you mentioned if you give him a pre-snap look, he's probably going to take it. And Clemson, if they got off coverage, they were throwing the quick out like 50% of the time. They were just chucking quick outs. You're playing off? I'm throwing a 5-yard out. I feel like he got baited a couple times where the corner sucked him in and threw some bad interceptions. So that stuff was concerning. And then we go through our accuracy charting. He was about middle of the pack overall in the class on just straight up ball location. And then when he had guys open, step closing, this is the part, if you guys had been listening to me previously, that Dak Prescott dominated in college. When he had open receivers, he was really good at throwing the ball accurately. Again, which sounds simple, but Dak was head and shoulders above the rest of the class. Watson, when he had a guy with a step of separation, was actually below average compared to the rest of the class. So a couple little warning signs, things that come up that are concerns. But that's the beauty of Deshaun Watson, because once you start pulling up these weaknesses, he makes the big throw under pressure. He makes the big comeback. He always seems to keep his cool, and he learns from his mistakes. And I think quarterbacking is not necessarily about being perfect across the board, but that ability to bounce back. So I think this is where I think there'll be some growing pains. But you mentioned the off-field, the intangibles. If anybody's going to get it, it's Watson. So I think patience is going to be necessary here. But I wouldn't be surprised if Bill O'Brien gets the best out of him a few years down the road.
Definitely. Yeah, I think the accuracy stuff, he's got a very pure, smooth motion. I think just cleaning up a couple more things to generate a little more torque and just kind of stay a little more balanced throughout the motion. He kind of ends up, picking up that back foot and almost bringing it, put in a pitcher standpoint, kind of after you come off the rubber and the right foot ends up kind of almost square with the left one for some guys. That's kind of where he ends up. So I think some of it can be fixed just through just working on his balance throughout the motion as far as the accuracy stuff. But, man, I'm excited to see this fit really all of them, but this one especially, just to see how he progresses and see where he goes.
Yeah, I'm with you, because even though schematically on the surface it doesn't seem like a great fit, O'Brien, Watson's intangibles, his off-field, I want to see it. I want to see this play out. So have some hope, Texans fans. I think there'll be some growing pains with Watson, but he's a guy that's going to work at it. I think you're going to see him continue to get better, and he's very talented. He still is very talented as a thrower. Let's move on to the next guy. So three quarterbacks go in the first round. The fourth quarterback, Deshaun Kaiser, we'll throw all the disclaimers out there. This was you worked with Deshaun Kaiser throughout the entire draft process. You were his quarterback guru. I'll give it to you. You were the guru. Can you just give a quick overview of what you were doing? We did talk about this on a previous podcast, but if we're on the pro podcast, whole new crowd, whole new group of people. So Zach, you were working with Deshaun throughout the process. Can you just give a quick overview? And again, the disclaimer that you were there throughout this whole process leading up to it. So we didn't talk about it too much on the podcast, but we'll keep it as broad as we can.
Yeah, no, we started, I guess, the day after Christmas, December 26th, went all the way up and through to his pro day, and, just kind of got after it every day. It was, I saw some things on tape that I think could have helped him ultimately mechanically and things like that with balance, like we were just talking about with Watson. But I was fired up to work with him just because the talent, there's so much talent there. I will say this, throughout the whole thing, he took very responsive to coaching, but the guy's mind and what he's able to pick up and then apply, that day is incredible. So he's got a ton of stuff there. In terms of when we were out there working out and throwing, you see some stuff that you're like, holy smokes, there's not many guys that can make that type of throw. He can zip it. He can throw with great trajectory and kind of layer the ball. So it was a lot of fun working with him. He was a great kid in the process. Showed up. He was ready to work. There's things ultimately that he's working on and can clean up and get better at. But overall, it was a blast to work with him. He was, the intellect was impressive. Just as far as we'd sit down and watch. It was going on during the playoffs. So we'd watch, the matchups that were coming up, whether it was a Super Bowl or whatnot. And he can sit there and coming straight out of college, really talk like an NFL QB already and understand the protection schemes and where to go with the progression. So in terms of a quarterback that can mentally handle a playbook, I don't know. I can't speak for the other guys, but this guy has got to be, at the top with right there with everybody. So I'm excited to see where he goes. I think Cleveland's a great spot for him.
So the thing about Kaiser, if you're into, if I see it once, I know he can do it, then the Texas game was a great example of Kaiser's at least shown what he can do. That was the game for me. You talked about layering the ball. He put one over the linebacker in between the safety for a touchdown. He threw with touch on a corner route. He threw with zip on a dig route, put the ball right on his receiver. I felt like he showed that quote-unquote arm talent that you're looking for on all these different types of throws. I think the problem with Kaiser both years, 2015 and 16, was the consistency, and I did tweet out at one point during the process, he makes the difficult things look easy. He makes the easy things look difficult. So this Texas game was these difficult things he made look easy, all of these difficult throws. My question is, the 5-yard curl, sometimes he'll overthrow it. The dig route, sometimes instead of putting it right on the guy, he's underthrowing it. You saw that a little bit all throughout the season, I think, in 2016. So you've talked about some of his strengths, what he can do. What other things do you think he needs to polish up that, Hugh Jackson's going to say, okay, day one, these are the things that that we need to work on? And then I'll talk about his fit with the Browns in a minute.
Yeah, I think, like you said, it was just the consistency on some of the easier type throws, and you could go back and he'd admit it that wasn't as consistent as he needed to be on, where like you said, a hitch route, as simple as that, not ideal ball location, but there are things that we kind of cleaned up and got ready to go. I will say he's throwing the ball incredibly well. He's put in a lot of time. And so some of those things really are fixable. You say accuracy can't be fixable, but he's got a just pure motion and everything, but he's a big guy, had a lot of kind of moving parts, and so it's just simplifying some of those things and ultimately getting everything going in the right direction. I think on those easier type throws that'll help him out. So I think those were the things, because you see the other wow throws, and if you look at just really what he had around him last year at wideout. I mean, there was a bunch of young guys that really they didn't have the pieces to highlight what he does well. His best spots, I think, are kind of the intermediate play action, kind of the 15 to 25 yard throws ish that he does really well. They didn't really have a guy that could get to that spot, a big body, whether it was a tight end or a receiver that can get to that spot. And so I think that kind of hampered a little bit of what he could showcase and do, but he's got a ton of tools there. I think he's definitely working at it and getting a lot better.
Yeah, he had the highest passer rating in the nation on play action. So it does kind of back up what you're saying. And going back to makes the difficult things look easy, one of the highest grades under pressure in the entire draft class. So that's where, when you talk about all of the stuff you're looking for in a quarterback, he's shown all of it, at least at some point. Make all the throws, work under pressure. I think sometimes he's held the ball a little bit too long. The last couple of years, we've charged him with as many sacks as we've charged his offensive line. But the potential's still there, and this is why I like the landing spot. I know that there were some rumors about him going in the first round. I think he landed right where he needed to in the second round. And I love that he goes to Cleveland, and he's Cleveland's fourth selection. They had 3 first-rounders. Kaiser's their second rounder. They still have 2 firsts next year. I like this combination because they have a chance to get something out of him, turn him into a special player, has all the tools to do it. But if he doesn't, they still have 3 first-round picks in this draft, and they still have 2 firsts next year, and they can keep eyes towards other quarterbacks. So I think it's also a great situation for Kaiser. Low pressure, a little bit less pressure. I know it's Cleveland, and Cleveland's been looking for their quarterback since like the 80s, but as a second-round pick, you're working with Hugh Jackson, a guy who knows how to develop quarterbacks. I think it's a good location. I think it's a good spot, and I think it's as low pressure as you can get for a Cleveland quarterback situation because, they can look elsewhere. And maybe that's more pressure, but I like the fit. I think it was the right landing spot as far as round and team for Kaiser.
I totally agree. I think that, personally been with Hugh Jackson for a couple years in Cincinnati, and what he does with quarterbacks is outstanding. One of the best that I've ever been around. So in terms of what he's going to get out of Deshaun, I think he's a great guy for him. David Lee, the quarterback coach I was with at the Senior Bowl, and so I kind of know both those guys and just know their overall just knowledge of the position and how to coach it. And I think it's a great spot. He will help them with everything involved. The holistic approach of what you got to do, day-to-day process and everything that will be really good for him. But the fit, in Cleveland, he's a big body guy. You got to battle the elements, the weather. There's some wind there as well. And so I think in terms of just what they want to do, and Hugh Jackson, ultimately he wants to be he wants chunk plays down the field, the play action game. He loves all that stuff. So I think that's an ideal fit for him in terms of what they want to do and ultimately be offensively, whether that's in a year or 2 years. It sounds like they're going to give him plenty of time. And like you said, there's just no pressure there. So it's a great fit. You can see why they liked him. I mean, his overall just instincts in the pocket stand out. To me, just the ability to feel things and then keep his eyes up and work through progressions. He was a basketball player in high school, baseball player, but basketball-wise, he averaged I think upwards of 10 assists per game. So he has a very good kind of spatial awareness and ability to see things and feel things. So the match there with Hugh Jackson is great. He's going to learn a ton, and I'm fired up to see it.
I love the combination of Deshaun Kaiser versus Cody Kessler, basically polar opposites as far as how they, Kessler's that up to 10 yards, crazy accuracy beyond 10 or beyond 20 especially. Things go sour, and you talked about Hugh he wants those chunk plays, so, I'm sure he would love for Kaiser to be the guy at some point very shortly. Same thing in Kansas City. You got Patrick Mahomes versus Alex Smith. You've got a couple polar opposite quarterback battles. So, again, like the fit with Kaiser to Cleveland, I want to fly through the rest of the quarterbacks and their fit. So if we'll just do like a quick nugget on each of these guys. Davis Webb going to the New York Giants. Davis Webb is getting a lot of first-round hype. Again, I think he landed in the right spot, 3rd to 5th round. That's where he needs to go. Big arm. He's got his own accuracy issues. By all accounts, off the field is outstanding, hard worker. What do you think of Davis Webb going to the Giants?
Yeah, I think it's a good fit. I wasn't as high, and we weren't as high on him. I think we had him, well down below a lot of different guys. But I do. There is still some things to like with his game. The arm talent is there. I mean, the deep ball stuff. He's got great touch on deep ball. It's just cleaning up the accuracy, cleaning up kind of the post snap. What he's seeing and translating, all the film that he's watching and taking it to the field and seeing production that way. But in terms of the Giants fit, I like it. I think it's a good spot. He can work the quick intermediate game that they like to do, kind of the West Coast type stuff and getting the ball out of the hand and winning a lot of stuff pre-snap. So I think it's a good overall fit for him.
C.J. Beathard, Iowa quarterback, goes to the 49ers. Kyle Shanahan, head coach, already giving the Kirk Cousins comp. We thought Beathard would go a little bit lower. I may have been lower on Beathard than you. You kept telling me, there's some stuff on tape. What'd you like about Beathard's game? Or what'd you not like? What'd you like?
Yeah, the arm is there. He's got a great motion, and he's got a ton of pop coming out. Now, everything is wants to be a fastball, and we saw that as we kept watching. There wasn't a lot of different type of throws. It seemed like he wants to just zing everything in there. So in terms of kind of ability to throw up and over guys, that's going to need to be worked on. And he was the guy. You look at the guys around him. Obviously, the tight end was a good player last year, but there wasn't a whole lot of separation that he was getting. So you kind of give him the benefit of the doubt a little bit there. Still, the overall feel and instincts in the pocket is not quite where you'd like to see it, but he does have experience working in a pro-style system. He does flash the ability to work through some progressions and things like that. So you definitely see why Shanahan likes him and thinks that, potentially he can develop him into something.
Josh Dobbs, 4th round to the Pittsburgh Steelers. If you had told me a year ago that Josh Dobbs not only would get drafted, would actually be coveted in this draft, I would think that you're crazy, but I think that's the beauty of Josh Dobbs. By all accounts, off-field, hard worker, continued to progress in college, and that is what I think the NFL really liked about Dobbs. What do you think about Dobbs in this backup role in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I like it. I mean, like you said before last season, I mean, you didn't think that there was any chance, but I think his arm keeps progressing, keeps getting a little better. Like you said, he works at it, and the ability that he had to bounce back throughout the context of a game, whether it was play to play, series to series, half to half. Sometimes we saw him come out with some just brutal first halves and then just mentally change everything and ultimately give his team a chance to win in the end. So you love that stuff with him. I think in Pittsburgh, it's a good fit. He's a big body guy. Can push it down the field a little bit. They are very much. He seems like a very structured type of guy. In my opinion, just with what he is off the field and how he plays. So it's going to be a little bit different from Ben's style. I know they don't coach up that many reads per se. It's more of just kind of, hey, you know where to go with the ball. Let's make it happen. So it will be a little bit of adjustment for him in that terms because he's just so structured, it seems like. But overall, yeah, I mean, he's got a chance to develop into a really solid backup.
Yeah, Dobbs is also an outstanding runner, and even though the accuracy is all over the place at times, made some huge plays under pressure, a lot of big throws under pressure throughout the season last year behind a bad offensive line. Nathan Peterman, Pittsburgh, a guy that I think grew on us throughout the draft process, goes a little bit lower than expected. He'd had rumors all the way up as high as the second round, goes in the fifth round to the Bills. What do you think of Peterman's game?
Yeah, I think I was surprised he fell that far. I think he's got a lot of stuff that you like. I'm guessing why he fell was just teams didn't know if he had enough arm. You see that, and we saw it throughout the season. Just some stuff as you get further down the field kind of dies and ends up a little bit low. So you see the little bit of the concerns there. But I think of all these guys to come in and be a backup right now, he has experience under center. He's worked through full field progressions, has a good little feel for the game. So in terms of the guys that were drafted, beyond the second round and can step in and be a backup, I think he's the best guy there.
And then Brad Kaya, who some Miami fans assured me would be a top 10 pick come draft time. And I'm not piling on, but he did go a little bit lower than expected. 6th round to the Detroit Lions. All said and done, I still thought that he was going to be a 3rd or 4th round pick. Certainly has some tools to him. My big concern, under pressure, he has just not handled pressure well throughout his career at Miami. I don't know if that's fixable, but there's something to his game. You keep him in rhythm. You put him in that old school, quote-unquote, West Coast offense label. You can get the ball out quick, throw with accuracy at the short and intermediate level. What do you think about Kaya, his game, and going to the Lions?
Right, yeah, you're exactly right there as far as just keeping him in rhythm, on time, and really that's kind of what we saw from Detroit's offense last year. They simplified things. They were, fairly simple concepts in terms of the passing game, and it was get the ball out quicker, help Matthew Stafford and that offensive line out a little bit. So I think the fit looks good. Like you said, the under pressure stuff is a little worrisome. The power on the ball is a little worrisome, but he's a very polished guy, coming out in terms of footwork and mechanically and all those things. He's very polished, so he's definitely got a good chance to develop there.
The last player drafted, Mr. Irrelevant, Chad Kelly. Swag Kelly goes to the Denver Broncos, master of the YOLO ball, on and off the field, a high-risk, high-reward player. Takes a lot of chances, has some arm talent. We'll see if John Elway, his team at the Broncos, can get the most out of Chad Kelly. What do you think about Kelly's game? It certainly comes with a lot of off-field baggage, but on the field, what do you think about the way he played?
Yeah, I think he was a lot of fun to watch throughout. I mean, he makes a ton of throws, kind of at that intermediate level. The system was very, very friendly. I mean, they got open guys running all the time,
but deep balls all over the place at Ole Miss.
Oh man, it's crazy. Yeah, the play actions and just kind of the trickery that they've got on defenses was fun to watch. But he, in terms of arm talent, he's right there with a lot of these guys. He's got a ton of it. He's athletic, can throw on the move. So there's some tools there. I was glad that somebody took a flyer on him and give him a chance to develop kind of in all facets.
So there you go. That is the draft class. All of the quarterbacks. We're skewing positive here. We like every fit. They're all going to be awesome. Even Swag Kelly, Mr. Irrelevant. They're all going to be great. Now, no, to be honest, I thought that most NFL teams did a pretty good job of drafting. Aside maybe from the Bears, perhaps giving up more than they should have for Mitchell Trubisky, I thought all of those top 4 guys went to really good spots, and yeah, we'll see if that plays out. And a lot of these guys, they had question marks. I don't know if they'll start from day one, but I can't wait to watch these guys in the preseason and see how they develop. If you're listening on the PFF Pro podcast, I'm Steve Palazzolo along with Zach Robinson. We do this every week on the PFF Quarterback Podcast. We hope you will download and subscribe because it's all quarterbacks all the time, your favorite QBs, diving deep into their strengths, their weaknesses, their PFF grades, in-depth stuff that Zach pulls out from his NFL days as a backup with like 15 different teams or whatever it was. What was it, 4 teams, Zach?
Yeah, so I lost count, honestly. It got too out of hand. I lost count.
You have some good insight, though, from your days bouncing around the league, so that's what we do at the PFF Quarterback Podcast. We appreciate you guys listening. And if you like more, go find us on iTunes or your favorite provider of podcasts. Also, don't forget your PFF Draft Pass. All of that information that we just pulled out, courtesy of your PFF Draft Pass, ProFootballFocus.com/DraftPass17. Use the promo code PFFSteve. Get $5 off. You're going to want this thing throughout the summer to reference unique stats that you can't find anywhere else, especially on these quarterbacks. We've got some quarterback charts. Every single pass that these guys threw, their grade breakdowns, they're passing under pressure, they're passing at every single depth. So there's a lot of good stuff. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. Be sure to leave your reviews on the Pro and Quarterback Podcast. 5 stars, always appreciated. And we will chat next time.